And we got some pictures in the link on the Coast to Coast site if you want to take a peek. While you're there, you might want to check out another item posted by Webmaster Lex. Someone had sent this thing to me. The title is In Honor of Aliens, and it's about an artist who's designing the floor tiles that'll be used at the future Raelian embassy. You know about the Raelians, right? Their prophet is a man named Rael who teaches that humans were genetically engineered by ETs. We might have to get Rael on the program sometime, by the way. He's an interesting man for sure. Whether you agree with his take on religion or not, anyway, take a look at the floor tiles for his embassy if you're so inclined. A bit of media news. I think tonight was the night that George Norrie's new TV show premiered. As someone who's taping it for me, it's called The Unexplained, and it's on the Sci-Fi Network. And I saw the promo for it. Looked really good. I'm sure it'll be a hit for George and for Sci-Fi. Looks like NBC is jumping back into the UFO topic as well. NBC is asking for people to write in with their close encounter stories. Dateline, I guess, is working on a UFO show. So a couple of weeks ago, they started asking for people to send in their tales of UFOs and abductions. And I think you have to go to the MSNBC website to submit your story. But keep in mind, every major network news program that we've seen about UFOs has really stunk up the joint. These news guys, they don't really like the topic. They always seem to flake out. They give the debunkers the last word. They make people look ridiculous. So if you're going to send these folks your story, proceed with caution. Okay, let's talk about the Needles UFO crash. I call it a UFO in the strictest sense of the word. It's unidentified. We don't know what this thing was. But back in May 14th, 3 o'clock in the morning, this large turquoise-like object flew out of the sky, coming from the northeast to the southwest. One of the eyewitnesses is Frank Costigan. He saw it fly over his house in Bullhead City. He was up letting his cat out, I think, at the time. Another key eyewitness was a fisherman on a houseboat who was floating down the Colorado River south of Needles, and he saw this thing crash just west of the Colorado River. Actually heard it land with a thump. And then within a couple of minutes, all these helicopters showed up and somehow attached this thing and carted it off into the sky heading toward the north. Residents of the Needles area say that the next day, all these strange vehicles showed up, men with a military bearing sitting in these vehicles with the kind of blacked out windows. They were checking out the radio station, KTOX, for one thing. They showed up a day or two later to ask questions of some lady who'd been at the radio station when a particular witness had called in, and things were kind of weird. Well, we started hearing about this. We started chasing the story. And we also started hearing these stories about these weird trucks with blacked out windows from people who drive back and forth from Las Vegas to the Needles area. So as I told you last time I was here, my photographer and I started going down there and chasing it, looking for these guys, see if we could get lucky and find them. And we did. And I've been promising you that I'd tell you who this agency was, so here we go. So we're driving back from Needles. We just passed Laughlin, the turnoff to Laughlin, Nevada, heading back to Las Vegas. And my photographer sees a couple of these trucks go by. So we hang a Huey, catch up to them. I'm shooting video with this little video camera. Get right up alongside of them, shoot the license plate. It says U.S. government. It's blacked out windows. The guys inside quickly figure out that we're up to no good. So we can see them talking on a radio. And just before we get to Laughlin, there's a turnoff, a way station, and they pulled off. So we pulled off, jumped out of the truck, had the camera pointing it back in their direction. It was kind of like a little standoff there, like who's going to draw first. Pretty soon, after a couple of minutes, one of these trucks pulls up next to us, and now they've got us kind of surrounded, and two guys jump out. And one guy looked like he was tucking in weapons under his civilian shirt, and he demanded to see our ID, and I demanded to see his ID, and it was kind of tense for a while there. And pretty soon he whips out a badge, and here's what it said. It said NNSA, National Nuclear Security Administration, which I told the guy, hey, I know that agency. I work with the Nevada test site all the time. You must know, of our TV station, and you must have heard my name. These guys had no idea who I was, and they were not impressed one bit. Gave them my identification. They wrote it down. I'm thinking to myself, oh, boy, by the time I get back to Las Vegas, I'll probably have 10 years and my taxes have been audited, and I could be in big trouble. And the guy said, look, you're not in any trouble. You're not under arrest, but you need to stand away as we continue with our shipment. And I asked him, shipment of what? He says, I can't answer any questions, but somebody's going to be in contact with you. I figured, oh, boy. Well, sure enough, I got a call from a friend of mine at the Department of Energy. He told me that, boy, you don't know how close you came, because these guys are not just NNSA. They're part of something, a sub-agency that I had never heard of before. In all the years of covering the test site and government programs and government agencies, it's called the OST, the Office of Secure Transportation. And basically, these guys transport nuclear weapons. They move nuclear weapons back and forth whenever they have to be moved to be dismantled or reconfigured. And it's not entirely an unknown agency. It's not classified. Its existence is not a secret, although most of what it does is secret. And they recruit the best of the best. I mean, ex-military guys, special forces guys, some law enforcement. They train constantly. They travel in convoys of 8-9 vehicles at a time, a big truck to carry big devices, and then smaller trucks with support and weapons. And anyway, because I had run into them there, they flew a guy out to meet with me from New Mexico. We got to talking about it. They told me basically what they did. Among other things, they told me about these amazing vehicles that they use to transport the weapons. And wow, what a story it is. They, in essence, told me that these vehicles are capable of defending themselves. So in the event that all these heavily armed agents were somehow overcome by, say, a team of terrorists, these trucks would defend themselves. And they told me flat out that if somebody tried to take a nuclear device or nuclear weapon out of one of these trucks, that person would be dead, period. Although they wouldn't describe exactly what the technology was for how that would come about. Anyway, we got to meet the head of the agency. He flew out from Washington a couple of weeks later. They took us up to a training program that was underway at the Nevada test site, and we got a first ever TV news glimpse into this program and put the stories on KLAS TV, which is where I work for my day job. But that doesn't end the mystery, because after we aired the story, my friends down there in Needles, who'd been helping me, Frank Costigan and David Hayes at KTOX Radio, they looked at the vehicles that were in our reports and said, well, that's not quite exactly the ones that we saw. So anyway, joining me now to talk about both the Men in Black and about the original incident that set this thing off, Frank Costigan, who was chief of police at LAX, Los Angeles International Airport, for several years, and the guy we know affectionately as Houseboat Bob. Frank, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Frank, thanks for joining us. I appreciate all the help you've been given to us on this story. And Bob, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Hey, Bob, let's start with you. Your name is not Bob, but could you tell me where the name Bob on the River came from?
Yes, sir. I basically didn't want to give out my real name, and what else do you call somebody that floats around on the river all day? Bob.
Okay. Frank, why don't you start to tell us, bring the recap for the audience what you saw fly over your house, and then we'll go to what Bob saw or heard land next to the river.
Yeah, I went out to take care of my cat. He's my best friend, and about 3 in the morning. And I noticed all of a sudden the ground is getting a little bit lighter, and I thought, is the moon moving or what? And I looked up and I saw something flying over, and it was looked to me like a meteorite or an asteroid, but extremely large, bright turquoise blue with yellow, red, flame, orange, behind it. This thing was monstrous. And it passed my house heading for the Colorado River. But I lost sight of it as it went behind the mountain. And it was so big, and my background working at the LA Department of Airports for almost 20 years, I fully expected to hear a sonic boom or a crash or something, and I never heard anything. And I was kind of surprised at that.
And you've since found other people in your area who saw the thing as well.
Yes, and not only that, Bob's going to tell you about his experience with it, but we've come across witnesses, and I talked to one several weeks ago and again last night, that report witnesses that, in addition to the helicopters, saw a military jet fighter circling in a big circle on the outer perimeter of where these helicopters were operating in the recovery of this thing.
And it appeared to you or to other witnesses that this thing was flying out of the sky and it appeared to slow down and then speed up again.
Yeah, almost like, if you're familiar with what a retro rocket is for slowing down or changing the airspeed of a rocket, it would indicate to me something of that order.
Okay, Bob, let's start in with your story, and we'll probably have to take a break, but let's get going on it. You're floating down the Colorado, 3 o'clock in the morning. You're